Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So we're going to make Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, but we're going to make him into a Lovely. These are just little snuggly blankets for babies that they can just kind of lay with and snuggle with and suck their thumb with. So that's what we're doing with this little guy today for Christmas. Let's get started. So I'm using a 5mm H hook for this project. I think for most of the project. I don't really remember, but I've got my instructions beside me. So we're going to start with the head, obviously. Now, with most Lovely blankets, the blanket part is built separately and then sewn to the head. I do mine differently. I crochet my blanket onto the bottom of my head. So we're going to do the head first. So we're going to start with a magic ring and 6 single crochets. You will need a stitch marker for this project. In each stitch, I'm going to put 2 single crochets. So now I'm just going to count to 12, but if you're going to use a stitch marker, it goes in after the first stitch, not the second stitch. So if you get lost, you can always refer to this little straggler guy too. Once you get back around to him, you're back around to the beginning. So our next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase. So we need to use our stitch marker for sure. 1 single crochet, and then your increase is 2 single crochets in the next space. And repeat. So you should come back around to your marker and in 2 single crochets. That lets you know that you've done everything right in the sequence for the most part. So you should have 18 stitches. Your next round is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase. So that's number 1. That's 2 single crochets and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the next space. So for the next 2 rows, you should have 24 stitches. For the next 2 rows, you're going to put 1 single crochet in each of those 24 stitches. So it should be starting to cup a little bit. So your next round is going to be 3 single crochets and an increase. Number 1. 3 single crochets and then your increase. So I screwed up somewhere because I ended with just one single crochet, which I should have ended with two. So this is where you kind of stop and think, I could still have the same right amount of numbers. I could just have put the wrong sequence in. So I should have 30. And I do not. You have 29, so I'm missing one stitch. So to fix that, I'm just going to put another stitch right into there, and now I have 30. So it's pretty easy to fix. Your next round, sorry, I'm so used to putting that in my mouth and I was talking with it. So your next couple of rounds, this first one's going to be 4 single crochets and an increase. So that's 4 single crochets and then your increase. So I want you to do all that all the way around. You should have a total of 36 stitches, and then the next row after that I just want you to put 1 single crochet in each of those 36 stitches. I will put my pause screen up and I will see you on the other side. So I'm done my 1 single crochet in each stitch. I should have 36 stitches, and now I'm going to decrease. So I'm going to do a 4 single crochet decrease. So that's number 1. That's 4 single crochets and then my decrease. So you go into your first stitch, pull through, you go into the next stitch and you pull through. So that gives you 3 loops on. You're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. That's a decrease. And repeat. 4 single crochet, decrease. Your next round is going to be 3 single crochets and a decrease. That is number 1. Three single crochets and then your decrease. So your next rounds are going to be 2 single crochets and a decrease, and then your 1 single crochet. I'll put my screen up again. That's number 1, that's number 2, and then your decrease. So this brings you down to 18 stitches, and then you can put 1 single crochet in each of those 18 stitches. So we have one more row before we have to change colors. So we're going to stuff this. Now I didn't use safety eyes or anything. I made eyes for this guy, so we won't need to worry about putting eyes in him. So try not to overstuff them now because it's going to be really hard to hold on to if you do. So one last round before we switch colors, we're going to do 1 single crochet decrease, and this brings you down to 12 stitches. So that's your 1 single crochet, and then you go straight into your decrease. all the way around. There we go. So we're gonna switch to white. Get my white. So this is just gonna be the snout. So our head's gonna be like this, and the nose. We're gonna start building the nose. So when we put the blanket on, it's gonna be down here on the side of the ball, so that's the back of his head. In case you're wondering what we're doing. So when I switch a color without fastening off and that, so it's a nice clean look and it doesn't look like they're all being dragged together. First of all, let me find my middle. So what I like to do is I go into the stitch and I grab some yarn and I pull through, but I don't come through these two. That's where I stop. Then I put my white on. I'm pulling my brown and holding it down a bit, but I put my white on and then I pull through. That's how I like to do a color change. It's nice and kind of seamless. Now you will have to weave in your ends as you crochet, but pull right down on that brown so that white's all the way down. So the next 2 rows you're just going to, let me find my stitch marker, you're just going to put 1 single crochet into the next 2 rows. So technically that's number 1. This here is technically number 1. Still the brown. You don't really need a marker because you've switched. You just got to remember that that one back there is actually where we switched, like where the marker was. So now we're on our new color, and I'm weaving in both my ends just for a little tiny bit, not excessively. I'll cut them off long and stick them down in there. It could be a pain, and if you don't want to do that, just tie these 2 in a knot where you joined, and then cut them off long and stick them into your work. I'll show you what I mean. I'll do that with you right now. So I've got this little bit of a tail from my white, so I'm gonna give my brown a tail. I'm gonna tie these 2. And then I'm going to stick just 1 knot. I'm just going to stick the 2 long ends down inside my work. So instead of weaving them in, you could do that too. So you should still just have 12 stitches. So that's my 2 rows, so we're going to do 1 single crochet and an increase, or a decrease, sorry. And that'll bring you down to 8 stitches. So that's 1 single crochet and a decrease. You're going to want to stuff as you go along too, because this is his nose, and this is kind of where we're ending it. So I have an extra stitch, so to fix that I'm just going to single crochet these 2 together where my marker goes, I'm the extra stitch girl today. I don't know what this is all about. There we go. So I just took 1 stitch away by putting those 2 together. So your color change isn't really that noticeable. It's a lot less noticeable if you did it the other way. So now I just want you to put one single crochet in each stitch around. It's only 8. So we're going to change to red. We're going to make a little bobbly red. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go into the next stitch. I'm going to pull through. I'm going to add my red. And I'm going to finish the stitch. So this one here is going to be half double crochet in each of the 8 stitches. So I don't want to do both. I'm going to make my tail a little bit shorter. And then I'm just going to stick that down in there. So I'm just trying to do the color change before I finish stuffing it, so all my pieces are going to kind of get stuffed in. That's what I'm attempting to do, but for some reason I am struggling. So I am going to put a half double crochet into each of these 8 stitches. So yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up. You have 3 loops on, you're going to pull through all 3 loops. That's half double. Maybe. There we go. So do that for all of these 8 stitches. I'm going to cut my white off. I'm just going to jam it down in there with some stuffing. I've got a weird shape to my nose right there. So we're only going to do one last row for this red, or for the whole head. So stuff it to its capacity, and the last row is going to be just one single crochet in each stitch, and then we can fasten off. And then our reindeer head is done. Well, we got to do the lower mouth. I actually put a mouth on it. You can leave it at just a snout if you want, if you don't want to add the lower mouth. So normally when you decrease something, you you do your decrease times 8 or your decrease times. We're not doing any of that. We're just gonna put one single crochet in each stitch. Yes, a single. So we've done singles for everything except for that part of the nose, and only because I just wanted the height a little bit. And that's the reason for the half double. So I'm back around, and as you can see, it's a pretty small opening, so I just sewed the rest of it shut. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to fasten off. I'm going to try to jam some more stuffing down. You just need a little bit of red to sew the top shut and weave in a little bit. So I'm going to still jam some stuffing down there. I just have to use my hook to do it. So I gotta sew a mouth to the bottom of this, so I need the stuffing for that. Plus you don't want the nose to constantly be pushed in or disfigured. I mean, the red nose is the whole part of Rudolph. Anyway, I might have overstuffed a little, but I can't see it through my thing, so before I do this, I'm going to go into this next stitch and I'm going to pull this through to the other side. It just gives it a neater, cleaner look. And then I'm just going to pick up one piece of that loop and 1 piece of that loop. So I'm just every other one, and I'm gonna go, no, I'm not gonna pull yet, but in and out. I only have that one more stitch anyway. So once you close it out, pull it tight, and then you're gonna wanna come around to the other side and make a wee little knot so that it doesn't open up. Now you don't want it pointy, so you want to go down and just pull that knot down to round it out. So go in as close as you can to where you just popped out, and just weave back and forth into the red, different directions if you can. And then you can just pop out wherever. Cut it off. There you've got the beginnings of your Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. So next we're going to do his bottom mouth. So you'll need your white. You'll need to do a magic ring with 6 single crochets into it. So I didn't really want it that round, so I started with my next row being 1 single crochet and an increase. So that's my 1 single crochet. You only have 6 stitches, so you're doing this 3 times. And an increase, so you don't really need a marker, but it brings you up to 9 stitches. Wow, I'm struggling to get into these. Some days you just can't control your tension. So your next round is going to be 1 single crochet in each of these 9 stitches. Whoops. So I'm just going to count to 9. So I'm pretty confident that I put 9 in here. So that really made it curl, because that's what that stitch, that 1 single crochet in each stitch, that's kind of what it's there for. So it really helped that curl. You can just cut this long tail off. So now we're going to do a 1 single crochet decrease. We're not stuffing this either, by the way. So that's 1 single crochet. And then a decrease. So you can fasten off. So you're going to need a sewing tail, obviously, a little bit. Just sew with. So nice little quick mouth. Well, not his whole mouth. This is just his bottom jaw. So I'm going to go into the next stitch and I'm going to pull this through. Just because I like how when you pull up, it gives it a nice cleaner look. So you're not stuffing this because we need to squish it flat. Yeah, I guess it might be easier just to sew the top if you wanted to do that. I just sewed the whole thing on, like when I did it. So you're just going to find whichever end. Look at all this filling. It gets stuck. whatever end you want your mouth on, it doesn't really matter, but some of you might prefer one end to the other. Get all this polyfill off my guy. So whatever end you choose, so I didn't sew the top shut, so you're just gonna kind of put it, you see what I mean? Just right at the white line, and then do invisible stitches. Now my invisible stitches are gonna come up through the entire project anyway, so that's why I didn't bother sewing it shut. So invisible stitches, you just want to come down as close as you can to your thing that you're sewing on, go into the doll, grab some of the doll, and then it's hard to show you, and then pop up into the project that you're sewing on, the piece that you're sewing on, and then the stitches get sucked down underneath. So I'm going to show you the needle in a second that I'm using. This needle has a hook on the end of it. There we go. So if you can get some of those, they sell them on Amazon. I buy a lot from Amazon, but I'm sure you can buy them at Walmart or Michael's or Joanna's or somewhere. Hobby Lobby, I don't know. I don't know what stores you have around you, but I got mine on Amazon just because during this pandemic I wasn't going out shopping and trying to deal with crazy people, and there's not much inventory out there for anything. So I went down into the corner and I just popped up here and I just pulled, so it kind of pulls his mouth to where it's still open, but, and then I'm just going to weave back and forth just in case somebody decides they want to come along and try to rip my mouth off. This should prevent that from happening. Even though I'm not tying a knot anywhere, I'm weaving like crazy. It's, in theory, supposed to confuse the yarn. So if you're pulling, the yarn's going to have to go multiple ways before anyone can rip it off. So there we go. We've got our reindeer with our bottom jaw. So let's complete the face before we get to the blanket. It's just a smarter plan. So let's rip off some eyeballs, because we'll place those first, then we know where to put our antlers and our ears. So we start with black, and we're going to make a magic ring. We put 6 single crochets into there, and then we're going to switch to white. So the reason I chose to do this, because he has ginormous eyes if you look at a picture of Rudolph. So I'm going to switch to white. I could have sworn I had, there's my middle. So I am going to go into my next stitch, or my first stitch, not my next one. I'm going to go into my first one. I'm going to pull up the black, but then I'm going to throw this on and finish the stitch. I'm just going to leave all this nonsense hanging at the back. I'm not going to try to weave it in because I'm just going to tie it all together at the end. So once you're on white, you're going to do your single crochet, which we're going to consider this a single crochet even though it's not white. So your next stitch is going to be a half double crochet. The next 2 stitches are going to get 2 double crochets in each. It's so hard to see black. The Then you're going to do a half double crochet. You do a single crochet all the way back to the beginning and a single. So I just wanted a little bit of a raised area for the eye for up here. So the rest of it's just singles, and then your half double, and then your 2 doubles. So kind of starting here, I just wanted to build it up. So you can do extended stitches if you want this higher. So that just means you pull up and then do your stitch. So that's just an extended stitch. So that's it for the eye, and then you can go into the next stitch. You can slip stitch, fasten off. You want a little bit of a tail because you're going to sew this on all the way around. We're not just tacking it, we're actually going to sew it on. So this ginormous mess at the back, I guess I get to cut my black off. So one of these tightens this hole, so you want to kind of tighten that, unless you're going to put a safety eye in there, but we've already closed the head, so I guess it's too late for that. Unless you're watching this video before you make the doll, if you wanted to do that. So I'm just going to tie a little knot there just so that middle doesn't pop open. I'm going to cut it off, but I've left a little nubby so that the knot doesn't try to undo itself. And then these two guys, I'm just going to tie a knot here. So I'm going to do a loosey-goosey knot, and then my second knot is going to be a super tight knot. Oh, and I just pulled too hard. Don't pull too hard, it'll roll your piece. Anyway, and then, where's my piece? And then you can cut those off, and you can leave a little nubby just to be on the safe side. So make your other eye, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll get it all sewn on. So I am done both my eyes, so I'm going to get my head, and I am going to figure out where I want them. It might be right. I got about 4 stitches in between. Looks like it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Top of the 9th row. Looks like it could be okay. Also looks like I gotta move it over one because I got my head twisted a little bit. Oh, actually that looks good right there. So you're just going to make sure it's even, obviously. I'm not going to teach you how to sew because I suck at sewing. But if you know what an invisible stitch is, I would just suggest you use it. So just make sure that the part where we put our 2 double crochets in each stitch, make sure that's at the top. So when you sew it, you're kind of push that so it doesn't roll over anymore. And you're going to accentuate that upper eye, sort of, to kind of speak. So mine's kind of off to the side here, but I'm just going to do, actually if you don't want to even do it on the outside because you'll see that, go into the inside stitches, grab your doll, and come up. But you can do it however you want because you might be really good at sewing and I don't sew very well. So I know I'm going to stick to the inside. So I'm back around at the beginning. I'm just going to overlap my last stitch. So there we go. You can just go in and then pop out. So I got both my eyes on and they're somewhat even. I never get anything even. But if you've pulled anything down because you've pulled too hard, you can just kind of plunk it back out with your scissors. I always do that too. I always seem to pull too hard. So we will get on to making our, we'll do our antlers first because they kind of go right into the center. And then we're going to know where to put our ears, which are generally right above the eyes. So we're going to make our antlers. So I know we're back with black and it's so hard to see, but it's going to be quick. So you're going to do a magic ring and you're going to put 6 single crochets inside that magic ring. For the next 2 rows, you're going to put 1 single crochet in each of these 6 stitches. So I'm just going to count to 12. So you can go into the next stitch and you can fasten off. So go ahead and make your other one. We are going to be stuffing this, so go ahead and make your other one. I will put the screen up and I will meet you on the other side. So I sewed the one on just because it's so hard to sew on camera, especially for something like this. I like to hold close to my body. So I'm just going to cut that off. That's the middle part. So I'm going to be very sparse with my stuffing, but I'm still going to put some in there. Just because, you know, kids throwing this on the floor and I just don't want it to be all squished and stuff. But I mean, it certainly does not take very much stuffing, obviously. So I'm just going to put a little bit in. So when you sew this to the top of a head, I don't know if you know what a Rudolph or a reindeer look like, but these are not close together. They're not far apart, but they're like that. The ears come off the side and kind of go out like that. So I literally have 2 tiny little stitches in between there. That's how close I am putting them. So, I just did invisible stitches again. I'm not sewing up the bottom, it's completely open. I'm just going down into the doll as close as I can to the antler, and I'm coming up into the antler. So my stitch gets sucked underneath. I'm going to do that all the way around. And probably not on camera because I'm not going to get it straight like my eyeballs. There we go. Antlers are on. They're somewhat in the center, somewhat sort of even. Let's move on to ears. So our ears, we're going to start with a magic ring, or however you make your circles, your rings, and we'll put 4 single crochets inside. Because I want them pointy, I'm starting with 1 single crochet and an increase. So you're going to do that 2 times. You don't need to really try to stick a marker in here. You only have 4 stitches. So put your increase in the second stitch of 2 single crochets and then repeat 1 single crochet, and again under both those stitches 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets under both stitches. Next round is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase. So stitch number 1. Oh, I keep losing my marker. Your marker. Stitch number 2, single crochets, and then your increase. 2 single crochets in that space. And repeat. 1, 1, 2. So you should have 8 stitches, and I want you to put 1 single crochet into those 8 stitches. You'll see how you got a little bit of a point. That's because we didn't do that 2 single crochet in each stitch business. So your next round is going to be 3 single crochets and an increase. That's number 1, always number 1. Three single crochets and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. I'm going to stick my tail down in there. Your next round is going to be 4 single crochets and an increase. So your next round is going to be 5 single crochets and an increase, and that brings you up to 14 stitches. And then you can put 1 single crochet in each of those 14 stitches. That's number 1. So you can fasten off. We're not stuffing this, so fasten off with a sewing tail. Pull this guy through. Kind of give it a little tug up. Makes it nice and neater. So we're not stuffing this, but fold it in half. Make sure this is on the side, like that. I'm going to take some white. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but the inside of deer's ears are white. So I'm just going to make a knot on one end. So I'm going to be folding my ear like that after. So the only part you need to put the white is right into this area, because you're going to fold your ear and you're going to sew it so it stays folded, and then you're going to sew it to the head. So we really only need white in this section here. So I'm going to come up And I'm going to go up and down a few times. I'm going to hit the same hole every time up here, but I'm going to go out a little bit each time down here. So I kind of widen the bottom, but not the top. I don't want my stitches to crisscross. So you don't have to be excessive with this. You can put in as much as you want. I guess it all depends on the size of the white, whether it's worsted or 4-weight, but it doesn't need to be crowded. So I did it 5 times there. And then this hole I just came out, I'm just going to come back down the same hole. And I'm just going to come out like that. I'm going to tie these two together just to secure so nobody can pull that white out of my ears. Cut it off. Again, we're not stuffing this, so you got your thing on the side here. I want you to thread your brown. I want you to fold it in half like that. So just push this down, so that should be together, and then just fold it like that. So that still leaves your white showing for your inside of your ear. And then with this, you're just going to come across and you're just going to stitch this. So, because we don't want this to open. You can stitch all the way down or not, because when we sew it to the head we're going to go around the outside, so I at least want to be as close as I can to the back. So I'm just grabbing a few of these stitches. I'm not going through the whole thing because I don't think it's necessary. At this point I'm just moving the needle and the yarn down to the bottom where I want to start sewing. So that's what your ear should look like when you're done. So go ahead and make your other ear, and I'll meet you back here after. So I've got my one ear on. I just got to sew the other one on. Sewing ears on is not an easy thing for me to do. I don't know about the rest of you, but I find it very difficult to sew ears on. So mine are set back a bit from the antlers, because that's how a deer's head actually is. So you have to figure out where you want this guy. Now pins don't really help, because you actually have to go, well, I go in and out where the pin is, so I may or may not be able to do this on camera because it's so very difficult to try to stay on camera. But I'm going to go down into the ear and I'm going to pop out somewhere, so wherever the needle pops out, and I'm going to pull tight. So you can either go back in to where this comes out and move it to a different spot, but just for added security I'm going to go in to the next stitch beside it. So that's just going to look like a stitch. The only problem is I'm not going to be able to pull tight. I'm going to come up right into the center of the ear. Yeah, see, I'm not on camera much, so I'm not going to be able to pull tight. But at this point, I'm just moving the yarn. So now, see, these pinning an ear is just about ridiculously impossible. You got to make sure your ear is kind of turned in this way a bit. So I'm going to go back down into the ear as close as I can to my tail, and I'm going to pop out somewhere else, wherever I pop out. And this is where I'm going to hold the ear and I'm going to pull tight. So if you do happen to notice your head sink in, just pull it out. Mine didn't sink in, I'm just trying to show you. So just pull it out. So that seems to secure it better, is when you don't go back in the same hole when you actually go into a stitch. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to come back up the middle. Try not to go into that white. And try not to go into the same space. So I've kind of come up over on the side here. So we're not going to pull tight going this way. But when we go back down, that's when we're going to pull tight. So just hold the ear and give it a nice tug. So that secures it pretty good. So you just need to do that a couple of times. So once you're satisfied with your ear and how it's sewn on, you can just weave a bit, and then I like to tie a knot. So I'm just going to weave a couple of times here. And then I like to tie a knot just in case some child's pulling at that ear. So not a tight knot, but a knot. Leave a little tail and then jam that knot down into the stuffing. So it should get lodged in there. So if somebody does pull on the ear, then... And then just put your head back to the shape it's supposed to be. There, we got Rudolph's head all complete. So we can move on to the blankie. My nose is crooked. There we go. So, in order to attach the blanket, we need to create stitches along the bottom of this guy. And we have to create 16 stitches. I need 16 because I gotta do 4 corners, but it's gonna be in a diamond shape. So, technically I need 17 stitches because I need a slip stitch spot. So, I need 16 working stitches. One of those are going to be slip stitches and chains, so I'm going to do 17 stitches on the bottom. Now, you can't hold your head like this to put them on, because then when you crochet your blanket, you're going to be crocheting on the inside and not the outside. And if you're changing colors, that's going to be no good. It's going to be visible on the outside. So you have to turn your head like this. So this is the nose. And your head has to be like this when you create your stitches. That way you're making the blanket on the outside, and then your color change crap is all on the inside. So we just want to make a slip knot, however you make your slip knots. And then we're going to attach. So this is not easy, especially if you've never done it before. It's not easy, but do your best to make a circle. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Mine usually turn out oval because they don't go out too far. First, decide where you want your blanket to come off of. And then you got to make 16, well, 17 technically, 17 stitches around, picking up the posts. So this is my 17th stitch, and then I'm going to slip stitch into this. I'm going to chain 2. So mine is not a perfect circle, it's more of an oval shape, and that's fine as long as you get 4 corners. So I'm going to put another double crochet into this chain 2 space because I really just don't want a seam. I hate seams. So we're going to do 1 double crochet This is just to start. 1 double crochet, and then we're going to make a corner because we're doing a diamond shaped blanket. So we're going to put a corner in here. So we're going to put 2 double crochets all in the same space. Chain 2. Two double crochets. Sorry, it's very hard to hold on to and show you on camera. So now we're going to do 3 double crochets across 3 stitches. And we're on the side of his head now. We're going to make another corner. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets all in the same space. And 3 double crochets. If you don't like the placement, then you put 2 double crochets, or you can change it any way you want. So I'm back around to the front and I'm lined up with his mouth, because like I said, I'm doing this diamond shape. So put another corner in here, which is 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. So the reason I chose to do it like this, as opposed to just sewing it to the blanket, which seems a lot easier, but you can't ever get the head to be secure, and I don't want the toy to, you know, I don't want the head to pop off on my grandkids. So 3 double crochets. So that's why I decided to make mine. As much as pain in the butt this seems, it's way more secure. So 3 more double crochets, and then we're making another corner. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, oh, I almost had a knot, and 2 double crochets. I'm at the end of my brown. So I need I need to make 2 more double crochets. I'm gonna have to add my other brown. Yikes, I hate when that happens. Right in the middle of something. So I tied a very tight double knot, and I'm going to cut it off as close as I can to that knot. Hopefully it doesn't impede my work. And I got to start my new cake. Here we go. So now I've got a lovely knot in my way, but so these are our 4 corners. That's last corner that I did. So now I'm gonna try to not use this knot. Keep the knot into the inside. I'm gonna put a double crochet and a double crochet. So usually we've done 3 double crochets in between, but with the extra double crochet we put in here, that's number 3. So I am going to slip stitch to the top of that first chain. So this is where we change colors, but now my tail here, my tail's on the inside. Don't really need to do anything with him. We're just gonna use him as filling. So now you should notice all of your corners are diamond shaped. So that's his head. So this should be diamond shaped. Anyway, that's my slip stitch, but I'm changing colors at this point. Now, I don't know what you're planning on doing, but you don't have to change colors. To do my chain 2, I am going to use my green. So that's going to be my chain 2. I'm going to pull down on my brown, keeping my green tight. So I'm going to weave this in a little bit. For my next row, I'm going to put a double crochet into that chain 2 space because I don't want a seam. So all you're going to do is double crochet over to your big space. This is how I make a granny blanket. You might make yours differently. A lot of people make their granny blankets different, or granny squares. So do whatever you want to do here. You don't need to do what I'm doing, because this is just how I make granny squares. So you're basically just making a granny square. Great big triangle shaped granny square. When you get to your big space, you're going to keep your corner. So you're going to put the two double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, and that's going to keep your corner a corner. And you're going to do this all the way through the project. So you don't have to weave in your brown too far. As long, you know, if you cut your brown off, let's do this. So cut your brown off, and whatever is remaining of your tail, you can just tie a little knot. It doesn't have to be a tight knot. It just has to be a little knot just to hold those two together, and then you're just going to leave them on the inside of your work. So that saves you from having to do all the weaving. I didn't use much of my cake. So I am done with the brown because I'm going to be doing my red and green. You don't have to, you can do whatever you want. At this point, it's all up to you. So there is a little stitch, it's so hard to see, right there, that a lot of people might miss in doing a granny square. Just make sure you get into that so your granny square doesn't lose its shape or your corners move, or because you really do just want to keep this a diamond shape, because I just think it looks better than just a square. Most of the lovelies I've made are diamond shaped, but you can do whatever you want. I mean, it's all open to whatever you like. So I'm back over to my next corner, and I'm gonna again keep it a corner by putting 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and 2 double crochets. And then again, don't forget to get into this first stitch. So I'll continue doing that all the way around. So I'll just crochet over to your next big space. So I'm back around, and I'm just going to slip stitch to the top of this first chain. And this is where I switch to red. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to drop that. I'm going to wrap my red. My tail is on the inside. Wrap my red around, and I'm going to do my chain 2 with my red. So technically it's a chain 3-ish, but it's not. And I'm going to put my double crochet. And again, if you don't want to weave, because it's such a pain in the butt as it is, just make a knot here. You can cut off your green, but keep a little tail. So all this crap's going to be underneath. You'll just have to fold it over after and then weave in your color. So it is a bit of work after. after the fact. So if you don't cut all this off, this could get wrapped around your baby's little fingers, and you don't want that. So even though I tied a knot, I'm going to weave in a bit because I don't want to have to deal with all that nonsense at the end. So if you don't want to deal with all the nonsense at the end, you'll be like me and just weave in a bit. It's just way easier at the end of the day. But I was just showing you an alternative. So once you're connected, did I put my... Oh, you know what? I didn't even do my double crochet in the same stitch, or in the same space. So do your double crochet in your chain 2 space. And then you can crochet over to your big space. So that's all we're going to do for this. And you can make it as long or as short as you want. So I'm at my corner, so I'm going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So you can carry on, and I'm going to carry on, and I will meet you back here when you think yours is long enough. Alright, so I am done mine. It's very hard to see, but there's my guy. His head is nice and secure. Like the other lovely blankets that are online, they don't sew it to the bottom. They just make, well, they don't crochet it to the bottom, they make you sew it to the bottom. So I made this one a lot bigger. I know it's really hard to see. I made this one a lot bigger because this will go to my toddler sized grandson, and this little baby guy, he's a lot shorter, and he's going to go to my baby sized grandson. So you can decide the length and everything, which is the best part of this project. The only thing you really got to follow is the reindeer head. And there we go. Thanks for joining me, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.